Now at 7, a Metro Atlanta Police Department now under fire for how it investigated an alleged attack and home invasion.
So what happened?
He kicked in the door. I ran. He choked me out.
An Atlanta News First investigation uncovered evidence that that woman may have fabricated her story.
So look, I don't say this enough on this channel, or maybe I say this too much on this channel, but I absolutely love the local news. I love absolutely everything about it. I love the fact that they have to give deference to clear and obvious liars in situations like this, because what the local news just told you is that a police department is a little bit under fire because they took the word of a woman who appears to have lied about her allegations against a man, which included that man kicking in a door in order to break into a specific property. And the reason why this is so hilarious is that the man in question, the accused, is in a wheelchair. He quite literally is physically incapable of kicking in any door at all whatsoever, yet we have to pretend that this woman may have lied, may have exaggerated about the situation to which she called the police for, and the arrests against this individual may have been a little bit, just a tiny bit, not called for in this particular situation. Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Sean, and today we have an absolutely crazy story out of the state of Georgia that we are going to break down. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
536, just confirming you're advising signal 20, front door.
College Park police respond to a home in June 2024.
Oh, thank God.
Hi, how you doing?
After Catherine Jensen says her ex-boyfriend attacked her minutes before they arrived.
So what happened?
He kicked in the door. I ran. He choked me out. Tried to get the keys from my hand of my truck.
So he grabbed you by your neck?
I handle him myself. I'm too small.
You say he kicked the door in?
He did.
So to be fair to the police in this particular instance, when they first arrive on the scene, they do not know that the suspect that they're about to make an arrest to is actually a man in a wheelchair who had been in a wheelchair for 25 years. They are being called into a domestic situation. They're getting her version of the story, but I do find it to be absolutely hilarious that not only did this woman say that he kicked in the door, which he's physically incapable of doing, but then after she was choked, which is possible, he could have engaged in that. We don't know. It's alleged, I guess. She then tried to run away, but couldn't get away from this person who's in a wheelchair. She couldn't outrun a guy who can't use his legs. This is the story that this woman put forward to the police. And again, when the police ended up investigating this a little bit further, when they ended up finding this individual, they didn't think, oh, we're obviously being lied to. They decided that they were going to initiate an arrest that went about as comically as you can imagine, but we will save that for a little later in the video. We're going to save the instructions that they gave this man in a wheelchair for a little bit later.
Charles Reed is the man Catherine claimed broke into her home and assaulted her.
She said I kicked in the door.
And why is that a problem?
Because I'm in a wheelchair and have been for 25 years.
Oh, come on.
Charles cannot move his legs. He's paraplegic following an accident when he was a teenager. Andrew Fleischman is Charles' attorney.
She describes that he's of average build,
Tall, short,
Average height.
that he has brown hair, that he's in black clothing,
tall, black.
I want to say yes, sir.
but not that he's in a wheelchair. Never mentions it. And that is probably the number one thing you'd mention about somebody.
Especially as they're running away.
On foot.
I guess he took off on foot.
I mean, come on. Seriously, people, come on. She quite literally told the police that he ran away on foot. And the opening of this local news segment about a guy who was arrested for domestic abuse where he kicked in a door, was able to chase this woman in such a way that she couldn't run away from him, and then took off on foot is about how she may have lied. She may have misrepresented some of this information. She may have not been 100% honest in this particular tale.
Charles and Catherine did date, but it was more than 20 years ago. They never kept in touch. He's been married for a decade with a newborn. And the day of the alleged attack, Charles says he was at a dinner party with friends.
Did police contact you at all?
No, not at all. Not a single time.
You didn't get a phone call?
Not a phone call.
You didn't get an email?
Not an email. Not a visit.
No one questioned you about this.
Nope.
Now again, this is where things get even more ridiculous, and I don't know the motivation behind this particular case. I don't know if this woman, who looks like, if we're being perfectly honest, one of those meth whites, decided to look this guy up on Facebook, realized that even in a wheelchair he's happily married, enjoying his life, and decided that she wanted to enact some kind of bitter, petty revenge against him because of the state of her life as opposed to the state of his life. He seems to be really happy, really enjoying himself, but for whatever reason, she decided to make this call, have the police show up, tell them this in the body cam. She must have forgotten that he was crippled in a wheelchair. He had been so for about 25 years. They said that they dated 20 years ago, so maybe she thought he got better. Maybe she saw somebody lay hands on him and him heal and walk up out of that chair, but obviously something is gravely off in this situation, and then the police, for whatever reason, take 9 months to decide to go after this guy, and even that's me stretching it because he ended up emailing them saying, hey, why do you got a warrant out for my arrest? And that's when they decided that they were going to go and get this guy because he's a very bad man. He committed this very bad crime. And even though he's in a wheelchair, that is not going to deter us from believing that he kicked in a door, attacked somebody that he hasn't dated for 20 years, and then escaped on foot.
For 9 months, Charles says he had no clue officers had a warrant out for his arrest for aggravated assault until the federal government alerted him when he tried to renew his passport. So he emailed Officer McKinley Boletti and set up a time to meet at the police department last month.
Then I finally go up there literally knowing absolutely nothing about it. I essentially surrendered myself because I was that innocent.
According to the body camera video, Officer Boletti questioned whether he was actually disabled.
Unfortunately, you do have the warrant out for your arrest, so I'm going to have to place you into custody. Is this a joke?
Charles warned the officer putting handcuffs on would likely make him fall because of his paralysis.
I'm sitting there literally exactly like this in my chair, and so he handcuffs me, and I'm like, hey, like, just FYI, like, I can't move. I literally can't. I don't have muscle control.
It's too late.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh!
Now look, that fall, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, just as an observer, looks pretty funny. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I did laugh a little bit when I saw it, but part of the reason why I still think it's funny is for a completely different reason, because this guy shows up in a wheelchair. He's been disabled for 25 years. This officer has the report that said he kicked in the door, he ran away on foot. The guy's like, yeah, I'm actually legitimately handicapped. He's like, I don't know if I believe you. He's like, I'm gonna put handcuffs on him. He's like, just so you know, I don't have control of my lower extremities. It's difficult for me to move, and if you bind my hands, I will fall out of this chair, very likely. And the cop thinks, you know what? I'm actually a genius. I'm actually really very intelligent. I have a 10,000 IQ, and what I'm gonna do is test whether or not you're a handicap. I'm gonna test whether or not you're a cripple by doing the exact thing that will result in you falling, that could result in a serious bodily injury, because, you know, I'm Mr. Dumb Cop. Now again, on this channel, we are often very much in line with the police when they are in the right. Again, this is a distinction that a lot of people don't seem to understand, but they can make mistakes. They can participate in epic fails, and periodically we check in on bad police officer activity, and this is a perfect example of that bad activity. Who is this officer to look at this person who brought himself in 9 months later because he found out he had a warrant, comes in a wheelchair to say, you're not a cripple, you're not a handicap, you're a door kicker and I don't give a damn that you knew this woman 20 years ago and you could not have possibly escaped on foot. We are going to initiate the arrest right here. And again, comedy ensues.
I mean, I could have broken my hip and died, like, very quickly.
How did they respond?
They literally sat there and just watched me writhe on the ground.
The officer still didn't believe Charles was disabled. Neither did his supervisor, who never put his eyes on Charles before saying this.
It's a ruse, man. So, I mean, it's an obvious attempt not to go to jail. So,
A fellow officer disagreed.
Might need to call the district attorney's office, because if the door was kicked in,
He didn't kick it in.
So right there you have the supervisor, and again, to be fair to the supervisor in this situation, there's a bunch of different people who fake injuries, who fake all these different things in order to avoid going to jail, so I understand the perspective that he has hearing about the situation. However, the grace that I give this particular supervisor immediately evaporates because he could just walk his ass out to the front of the police station, look at this individual, and make a better educated assumption based on this particular case. And what ultimately ends up happening is that this officer right here ends up coming out and he says, hey, I have a theory. I have a crazy crackpot kind of idea to throw out there. Maybe, just maybe, this was a false police report and this guy who we've left on the floor now for God knows how long in handcuffs as he's writhing in pain, maybe he's completely incapable of kicking in a door. Maybe we shouldn't be, a bunch of dumb idiots. Maybe we shouldn't be a bunch of not smarts and think to ourselves that this guy who rolled up in here in a wheelchair very likely did not actually commit this crime. And if he did, why would he come and basically turn himself in a wheelchair as if that was going to fool anyone beyond maybe like 10 minutes. Maybe we got this one a little bit wrong. Maybe you, officer dumbass, are going to get us in a lawsuit because obviously he's still on the floor writhing in pain and we should probably do something about that. And the other officer's like, so you think that this woman did false allegations?
False allegations and not facts.
I mean, come on. Look, I honestly genuinely feel bad for this guy. He was falsely accused of a crime. And honestly, if he was not in a wheelchair, then likely this would have gone even further than this particular situation. But the comedy surrounding this is just too much for me to ignore. How am I supposed to take this seriously when you have a bunch of bumbling officers making an unbelievably stupid error right before my eyes? Am I just supposed to pretend that this is not hilarious? Am I just supposed to pretend that the officer who, again, got the email from this individual, agreed to this meeting, is not a complete and utter idiot that doesn't understand context and situations and whatnot?
He started to hurt me about March of this year. And
A year before Catherine claimed Charles assaulted her, the Noonan Police Department, about 30 miles away, arrested her for theft and forgery after allegedly filing a false police report claiming someone stole from her. Flashman says officers have access to a state database identifying prior arrests, but Officer Belletti never mentions Catherine's arrest record in the incident report.
I've never seen a case where somebody was so clearly innocent and it would take so little work to establish it, and nobody was willing to do the work.
Now look, I can only speculate on why Officer Belletti decided not to run this woman's record, this clearly and obviously methed out white person's record, to find out that she had a history of making false police reports. And honestly, I don't really care whether he was not qualified to be a cop, whether he's an absolute idiot, whether he just buys into the believe women narrative no matter what. It makes no matter to me, because what he ultimately ended up doing is, first of all, providing cause, in my opinion, for his dumbass to be fired, but also he provided cause for a lawsuit against the department that could have been avoided with, 3 seconds worth of, let me look up the background of this individual that I'm interviewing in this situation.
it was a tumultuous relationship.
According to this email obtained by Charles' attorney, Catherine wrote to a College Park police detective this week asking to change her statement, writing, "My mental state and physical trauma in that moment worked to confuse me. Please contact me at your convenience so I can edit the information in the report and clear the name of an innocent man."
So even this lady who has a bunch of issues, even this lady who has been arrested and charged with filing a false police report in the past, which I guess they cover under forgery statutes in the state of Georgia, ended up contacting this officer to edit her statement to say, hey, this guy's an innocent guy, leave him alone, don't hurt this individual, no big deal, can we just kind of wash our hands of it, even though I think the damage is done, and obviously there should be consequences, not just for the department, but for this person who alleged that her door was kicked in, and the man chased her and she wasn't able to run away from him, and then he escaped on foot. That is multiple layers of idiocy in this particular police report when the suspect is somebody that is in a wheelchair, when the suspect is somebody with a documented medical condition that dates back 25 years that shows he don't walk very good, and in fact, he don't walk at all.
How's this impacted you?
Well, I haven't been able to leave my house in a meaningful way in 2 or 3 months, just out of fear that I'll be picked up for an arrest warrant.
Has the police department apologized?
Not a single bit. Haven't heard a word from them. In fact, we've been trying to get into communication with them repeatedly, both me and my lawyer.
Because ultimately, that's all we're asking for, just to be adults. Take responsibility when you make a mistake and try to fix it.
Now look, should the police apologize? Should the officer in question apologize? Yes, absolutely, 100%. That being said, we understand that there is a looming threat of well-deserved litigation against this department, so you can understand why they're a little bit hesitant to apologize. But honestly, I think Detective Dumbass still thinks that this guy might have kicked down a door and he might have been faking this incident that happened 25 years ago that put him in a wheelchair just so he could kick down the door of one of these meth-looking whites in order to punish her for daring to leave him 20 plus years ago, even though who the hell knows what happened in that relationship, and the guy's been happily married for 10 years. Again, ridiculous from top to bottom, absolute bumbling idiocy from the police department. Not only the officer that placed him in handcuffs and then left him on the ground, but also the supervisor who decided to assess that he was faking it without even looking at him. And again, credit to the one officer who was like, you know, this maybe, just maybe, is a false police report. But again, all your thoughts I gotta know down in the comments below related to this case. Will you take a stand for this individual? Yes, that is a wheelchair joke. I apologize for that. I'm a bad person, guys. Just forgive me. I'm on the guy's side. Let me have my jokes. But anyway, if you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute madness that is going on in this Georgia town. Till next time.